Okay, very good day. I'm Dr. Shahira, your law lecturer for this short semester. Okay, basically, this is introduction slide. Okay, as regard to the first chapter. Okay, especially those who have missed the Monday and also Tuesday. So I try to record so you can do revision. Okay, anytime. Okay, by watching this recorded video in YouTube. So this is my email, okay, or you can also email to Gmail, okay, but I prefer you contact to my formal email. So today, this slide will be discussing about basic legal principle of law in Malaysia. We're going to look at definition of law, the Malaysian government system, classification of law. So in general, there are 7 chapters in this short semester. I've been informed that 30th August will be the last day, okay, for this semester. So basically, you have about 6 hours with me weekly, okay, as regard to introduction to. So the second slide, we'll be discussing on sources of law in Malaysia, written law, unwritten law. The third slide is basically on the judicial system in Malaysia, sistem kehakiman in Malaysia, the Malaysian court system and its hierarchy, interpretation of statute, agency law, what are the business entities in Malaysia, law of contract, and then contract for the sale of goods. So basically, please join Telegram group, okay, which I've already set up, okay, and that also through email. So for your information, okay, when you learn virtually class, you cannot equivalent it to face-to-face. So 10 minutes recorded video, okay, that I'm preparing you is actually equivalent to 1 hour face-to-face. That is the guideline from the Malaysian Qualifying Agency. So again, you have to check your bandwidth. Usually, if you use Telegram and WhatsApp, okay, it's a very low. Okay, but if you open your camera, okay, it will take a higher bandwidth. So this is online classroom. Okay, try to be on time. Be prepared. Okay, before joining the class. Okay, turn on camera. So this one is flexible. Okay, because it will take a lot of your data. Do not eat, okay, that is also flexible. Okay, dress appropriately if you're going to open the camera. Okay, mute your mic unless you are requested to talk, okay, to answer. You can raise question in our Google meeting, okay, if you do not understand, okay, in the chat box. Okay, and of course, okay, enjoy the learning, this new kind of learning. Before we proceed with introduction, okay, so topics for midterm, there will be 3 topics for midterm examination. And topics for final examination, there will be 4 topics, and there will be individual topics. So our meeting is based on the platform, okay, Google Meet. Okay, so this is the portion. Okay, 50% is final examination. The date will be determined by the faculty. Okay, for midterm, okay, it is suggested that on 20th August, we're going to have 1 hour, okay, midterm examination, okay. But of course, taken into consideration of the bandwidth system also, we might have 2 hours, okay, face to face, okay, I mean virtually, okay, and 20% is individual assignment, okay, which will be discussed in the third slide. Okay, class, this is the main reference, okay, or the textbook, Business Law, prepared by Dr. Lee Mei Peng and even Darren Data. So I'm not sure about those who are outside Malaysia, whether you can have this book, okay, sent to your country. Okay, that is also an issue because I've been informed that the publisher, I'm not sure whether they have prepared or not ebook, okay, as regard to as regard to the textbook. So today we are going to discuss on the concept of law in Malaysia in relation to the state and also constitution. Okay, so please take note that Malaysia has written constitution compared to English law. So in other words, federal constitution is supreme than the parliament. Compared to UK, they do not have written constitution, perlembagaan negara, so their parliament is supreme, is higher than the constitution. So we're going to look class what is law, law in relation to justice, law and ethics, the rule of law, the law, state and constitution, law in Malaysia, what is a state, and classification of law, public law, international law, and also private law. So these are the type of law that we are going to look in general, and basically we are going to look on business law. So whether we like it or not, law is a means or device to regulate the economic and also social behavior of society. And it aims to preserve the economic and also social welfare of our society. Why law is needed is to regulate and control the affairs of society. And it is a regulatory device which provide mechanism for society to function through tools such as legislation and case law. So legislation means that it is written law, statute, acta, or act, or for state, it is known as enactment. And through case law that is being brought to the court, this is how law is developed class. So law guarantees our freedom. For example, previously before this restricted movement, we can have our dinner in the restaurant. That is our freedom class. You can have your breakfast in Negeri Sembilan, Nilai, and then perhaps you drive, a car and go to Sedang for lunch, and at night perhaps you decide to have your dinner in Kota Baru, Kelantan. How? Is by taking a flight to Kota Baru. So this is freedom. This is fundamental liberties, which is written in our federal constitution, which enable free enterprise, and usually it provide a means to settle dispute amicably. So this is what law is all about. So law shapes our commercial enterprise. How do we do business? How we govern our business? How the relationship between traders and the society. It is relevant to all members of society. So the first day that we are born to this world, we need to register within 7 days, in Jabatan Pendaftaran Negara or the registration, and if we pass away also, we need to register, of course, if we pass away, it will be our those inheritance, will register on behalf of us. So in terms of corporate mergers, privatization of governmental organization, crimes, committed by industries, securities industries, and corporate fraud cases. Securities here is about what we call, it is about more to Bursa Saham Malaysia, about the how corporate governance work, and how to avoid white collar cases. So what is law? It is a set of rules that regulate interaction that people have with each other, and we set standard of conduct between individual and between individual. For example, law of marriage. It is between a man and a woman. And the government, and which are enforceable through sanction. For example, traffic light. The law about accident. So it is enforceable through sanction. To the layman, it means an ordinary person who do not study law. We call it layman. Orang awam. Law is understood as being a general rule of conduct. According to the Oxford English Dictionary, defines law as the body of enacted or customary rules recognized by a community as binding. So binding here, it means compulsory, in the members of the society. So Sir John Salmon, a reputable legal scholar in jurisprudence, define what is law. It is the body of principle, recognized and applied by the state in the administration of justice. John Austin, in the province of jurisprudence, determined, described law as a command set by a superior being to an inferior being and enforced by sanction punishment. So Sir John Salmon and also John Austin are two legal scholars which are known about the philosophy of law and so on. So they try to define what is law from their perspective. The term law itself class is defined under Article 160 subsection 2 of the Federal Constitution 1957. As I said, the supreme law in Malaysia is the written Federal Constitution, bertulis. So before the Kemerdekaan Day or before the independence of Malaysia, the British government have sat down and come out with the Federal Constitution. And item 43C of section 2, subsection 1 of the Interpretation and General Clauses Ordinance mention that law include the written law, common law, as it is operate in the federation or any part. Thirdly, is any custom usage having the force of law in the federation or in any part of the state. So in general, we can see that native law in Sabah and Sarawak, is also becoming a force of law, which is applicable only in Sabah and Sarawak. Common law, as one of the Commonwealth countries, Malaysia, might follow the common law. We have the cases to show about why the precedent about the meaning and application of common law. This is decided in the case of Dana Harta Urus Sdn Bhd against Kekatong Sdn Bhd Bar Council Malaysia Intervenor. For your information, the law that is compiled in the statute which is called Act for federal government or for enactment for the state government, this is called statute. And in order to interpret this statute, it is not the lawyers who interpret, but it should be referred to the court of law. So the cases that we are learning, is basically you have cause of action. Of course, when you go to the court, you must have a reason why you want to bring the case to the court. So this case shows that Dana Harta Urus mentioned that what is the meaning and how far common law can be applied in the Federation of Malaysia. And then we have the case of Seri Inai Pulau Pinang Sdn Bhd against Yong Yit Sui, and the case of Chung Kiao Bank Limited against Hotel Rasa Sayang Sdn Bhd and another. So it means that beside Hotel Rasa Sayang, there is another party. So that's why it's called another. So this case stressed on the development of common law in Malaysia. So class, please take note. If you look at the name of the parties, it is between individual and individual, or it is company against company. So this basically is a civil case. And if it is a criminal case, how you want to identify? Usually you have the word public prosecutor, which means that it is the person who is appointed by the Attorney General, by the Peguam Negara, to represent the government to sue someone in criminal cases. So what are the example of criminal cases? For example, rape, murder. So this is considered as criminal cases. What happened in Seri Inai? The court referred to Section 3, mentioned that the Civil Law Act 1956 explain or permit that English law can be accepted into Malaysia, but subject to the qualification, it must be lawfully modified in the future by any written law. So the reason behind that, why it need to modify, because to suit with the local circumstances, whether it is suitable or not, to apply that English practice to Malaysia. The example that we have is, for example, in UK, they have the Act of Unmarried Father. So such practice will not be applicable in Malaysia because our society recognize marriage between a man and a wife. So that is by looking at the local circumstances in order to what we call to take from other countries. We cannot simply copy and paste into the Malaysian scenario. You must understand that Malaysia is a multiracial country. cannot simply copy 100%. Okay, what is being practiced is in Western country or even in other countries. Another case class is S. Kulasingham and another, again, Commissioner of Land, Federal Territory and other. The legislature can by clear word exclude the principle of natural justice in the absence of specific constitutional guarantee. So the case is about the right, okay, of the legislature, okay, the person who make the law. Another case class is Ng Kim Moy, is the plaintiff and others against pentadbir tanah daerah Seremban Negeri Sembilan Darul Khusus Negeri Sembilan Township, Sdn Bhd and another proposed intervener. So law does not just mean written law, and by virtue of the definition on Article 160, law also include common law. So the definition is quite wide. Another case is Director of Forest Sarawak and another against T.R. Sandah, A.K. Tabau and others which are suing on behalf of themselves and 22 other proprietors, occupiers, holders and claimants of native customary rights, okay, constituted at Rumah Sandah and Rumah Lanjang Ulu Macan Kanawit and other appeals. So you can see that Director of Forest have sued this orang asli and also the claimant. Another case is Superintendent of Land and Survey against Kota Samarahan Division and another against Luking Anak Uding and other appeal. We also have the case of Superintendent of Land and Service Kuching against Jamilah binti Abdul Hamid and others. So in this case, it tried to look at the meaning and application of the phrase any custom or usage having. So the force of law in the said article 160. So class law aims to maintain justice in society. Justice itself is an abstract idea of what is wrong and what is right. Also about fairness and also equality before the law. So the aim of given law class is to encourage of doing what is right or just, justice in a particular set of circumstances. So justice is what right-minded members of the community. It means that the society, which are not insane, that is those who having the right spirit within them to believe, to be fair. Law basically is an attempt to represent what society believes is right or fair. Okay, so however, in the application of a particular set of circumstances, a law may not always appear to be just. So there are some circumstances might be pressure to the lawmakers itself. Whereas when we talk about ethics, it's about what is right and what ought to be, not simply accepting what is. So among the ethics that we have, for example, the dining rules, for example, you don't eat in the toilet, because our ethic is you eat at the dining room, you sleep in the bedroom, and that is ethic. The purpose of law class is to govern all conduct of all members of society, whereas ethic guide individual, like you and me, to ascertain the soundness of rule and what is the impact upon relationship. So we need some guidance. When we have law and ethics, though a different concept, are often related. Businesses, for example, use legal standard in carrying out their activities and in decision making. Businesses also adopt code of ethics or conduct. So when we talk about conduct, rules of ethics, we're talking about rule of law. One of the celebrated legal scholars named Dicey mentioned that the rule of law involves 3 propositions. So what are the 3 propositions? Firstly, no one must be punished except for a breach of law. No one is guilty until it is proven. All persons are equal before the law, irrespective of status or position. So this is the rule of law. Okay, the right of freedom of citizen are enforceable in the court. For example, the right of a child to education. Okay, the right of a child to go to school. Okay, but because of this pandemic COVID-19, the school has to be closed and majority of us are learning from home. Okay, PDPR. Okay, so these are the rule of law. Okay, which need to be followed. Okay, by the society. So law in Malaysia, okay, which consists of Peninsular Malaysia, Sabah and Sarawak, is considered under one political unit. But it is a different same set of law for every state. There have been attempts to make to achieve uniformity in the law throughout the Malaysia, but this is not possible in all areas of law. Okay, there are two uniting, okay, the two part of Malaysia. Firstly, the parliament, and secondly is the federal court. The legal system class are determined almost entirely on the basis of political unit known as the state. So we have state of Selangor, we have state of Negeri Sembilan. So every state has its own style of management. But for international purpose, Malaysia represents Singapore. Okay, you cannot say, oh, I'm from Chief Minister from Pahang. I'm not sure what happened to other state. So you cannot do so, class, because at the international perspective, you are representing Malaysia as one state. Okay, and however, there are 13 states, okay, in Malaysia, and each state has a government and has rules which lay down who shall govern and how it should be governed. As I mentioned earlier, Malaysia has a written constitution, federal constitution, which is the highest, okay, or the supreme law of the federation. So what is state? Under Article 4 from Section 1 of the Federal Constitution, the law said that the Constitution is the supreme law of the Federation. And any law passed after the independence, okay, which is in conflict with the Constitution, the extent of inconsistency will be void. Okay, so it means from beginning the law will not be passed by the Parliament. The law enacted by Parliament, okay, which are not, okay, in accordance with the Federal Constitution, what they can do, they can apply for declaration. Okay, they can be declared void, okay, by the courts. So law enacted by Parliament, okay, which are not in line with the Federal Constitution, they can be declared void by the court. Okay, we have the case SR Retana against Government of Malaysia and another, okay, Repco Holding Berhad and Public Prosecutor. We have another case, okay, but this time involving Dana Harta Urus Sedia Berhad against Kekatong Sedia Berhad, okay, which Bar Council become the intervener. Okay, it means what I call the third party, which might be a judge to that situation. Interestingly, class in Borhan bin Haji Daud and other against Abdul Malik bin Hussein, the ISA is a special law made under Article 149 of the Constitution. The arrest and also detention, okay, of the respondent here, that is Abdul Malik, was lawful. And what is ISA? It is detention without trial. Okay, kamu ditangkap dan dipenjarakan ke dalam penjara, okay, for example, as long as they like. So that is ISA, Internal Security Act. And the act has been abolished, okay, by the former Prime Minister Datuk Seri Najib. Okay, but later the government introduced, okay, what I call introduced, okay, as regard has abolished ISA. Okay, so Article 149 mentioned that laws such as ISA are valid, even though we know there is restriction of your movement, there is restriction as regard to be defended by lawyer. Okay, it is against Article 5, 9, 10 and also 13. So in other words, even though Federal Constitution mentioned that Malaysia is guaranteed, okay, with its freedom, but of course there are certain limitations, okay, that is where you can practice freedom. 100%. Come tax suit against Timbalan Menteri Dalam Negeri Malaysia and other appeal. Okay, this case is in conflict with Muhammad Izam bin Muhammad Noor against who sued against the Ketua Polis Negara and other appeal, which decided that the ISA is still subject to Article 5, Section 3 and Article 149 of the Constitution and should not be used to remove such right. The Federal Constitution actually gives legislative power, okay, the power to make law, to power to scrutinize the law, okay, to the Federal Constitution and the State Constitution. So Article 73, to what extent, okay, if there is a conflict between federal government against the state law, in exercising the legislative power, okay, it is conferred by the Constitution. Parliament may make law, okay, for the whole or other part of the federation, and law having effect outside, okay, as well as within, okay, the federation. So Article 73 shows the example of the conflict. For example, water supply class. Okay, I believe that you have heard this between the federal government in supplying water to affected areas such as Kelantan. So legislature of a state may make law for the whole or any part of the state. So parliament class may make law for the whole of Malaysia. Article 74 mentioned that parliament may make law, okay, as regard to the matters which is listed in federal list, okay, or the concurrent list. So we're going to look what is federal list. Federal list include external affair. What is the relationship between Malaysia and Brunei? Okay, and Malaysia and Israel, Malaysia do not recognize. Okay, we have external affairs. We also have national evidence, okay, pertaining to federal list. And the issue of internal security is also false, okay, under this federal list. So we move to the next slide. Okay, another matter is civil and criminal law and procedure and administration of justice. Okay, and then we come to the debate of equal citizenship, okay, and naturalization, okay, to the society, okay, itself. So the machinery of a government, okay, the finance, the trade, commerce and industry, okay, shipping, navigation and fisheries, communication and transport, federal works, okay, and power, survey, inquiries and also research. Okay, what is a state is also mentioned in the education, okay, mentioned, okay, medicine and health, labor and also social security, welfare of the aborigine, okay, orang asli, keistimewaan mereka, what are the professional, okay, professional occupation, for example, okay, where the state is responsible, holiday, standard of time, okay, sometimes we really want something, okay, so that is as regard to what we call professional occupation, holiday, standard of time, unincorporated societies, control of agriculture, pests, okay, and others. So this is what is state, okay, basically. So now we move on to what is a state, okay, that is as regard to the situation. Newspaper, publication, publisher, printing and printing presses. We have censorship law. Okay, we have theatre, cinema, public amusement, federal housing and improvement trust, cooperative societies, prevention and extinguishment, okay, extinguishment of fire, including fire services and also fire, okay, brigade. Okay, we have the case of Tan Sri Abdul Kadir Ibrahim, okay, the former Chief Minister of Selangor, who sued Bank Islam Malaysia Berhad, okay, to consider item 4 of the federal list. Plus, what is concurrent list? It is the list that we shared between state government and also federal government. So among other things that are going to be referred is social welfare, social service, protection of women, children, and young people. Okay, it also looks about application of scholarship. Okay, it also looks about protection of wild animal and wild bird in the national park, and of course about animal husbandry. Okay, town and country planning is also important. Okay, and it needs to be regulated. The issue of vagrancy, okay, and also itinerant hawkers, okay, who are affected during this COVID pandemic. Okay, so this is the responsibility also of the state, okay, to look after its citizen. Public health, sanitation, and prevention of diseases. This is what we are facing at the moment. Okay, after the Yang di-Pertua Agong declared state of emergency, okay, darurat. Okay, and it was informed that darurat, okay, is to flatten, okay, the numbers, okay, of affected cases. Okay, and for example, management of drainage, irrigation, okay, that is also responsible of a state. And then the issue of rehabilitation of mining land, okay, which was suffered, okay, soil erosion also is the responsible of the state. So environmental, okay, issues also need to be what you call looked by the state. So fire safety also, fire precaution in the construction and maintenance of building is also part of the state responsibility. And matters enumerated in the concurrent list must also be the subject matter of law made by the state legislature. So in every state, they have its own parliament. Okay, if you go to Penang, okay, you have where the state government sit down together, okay, in the parliament to discuss matters pertaining to the rakyat, pertaining to the citizen, okay, and Malaysia. There are matters also mentioned in the concurrent list, okay, that can be the subject matter made by the state legislature. So in state legislature, okay, it means that for the state government, okay, legislature is the who make the law, okay, can make law with respect as matters, okay, listed in the state list. So what is state list class? So usually Islamic matters, okay, personal, family law, okay, divorce, okay, marriage, okay, Malay custom, offences by Muslim, for example, eating in the public during Ramadan, during the fasting month, Sharia court, okay, land matters, agriculture, forestry, local government, okay, Majlis Pemandaran, okay, your municipal, that is local government, local services, state work, and also water, that is under state government. Beside that, the machinery of the state government, different state, they has different style of government. Okay, as long it does not contradict with the existing law, the state holiday, offences against state law, inquiries for state purposes, okay, and also indemnity in case of the breach of the agreement. Also, turtles and riverine fishing, for example, this might be applicable, okay, in Kelantan and also Terengganu, okay, about turtle. We have the case class of Muhammad bin Daud and others who sued the government of Malaysia together with the Ketua Pengarah Jabatan Alam Sekitar and another against Kajeng Tubek and others and other appeal. So during examination, okay, if you are given discuss the following case, usually you are given the name of the case, so that should not be a problem. Okay, the problem is that during examination, if the question asks you to recall cases, of course, in answering law paper, you must try to memorize, remember the leading case. Okay, so I'll be guiding you what are the leading case for example, for law of contract, for offer, for example. Okay, so I hope you listen carefully, you practice writing the name. Okay, sometimes the name is alien to us. Okay, never heard about it. So practice make perfect. Okay, so it is a matter when you learn law. Okay, it is a matter of you not only listen, okay, but also try to practice writing. Okay, So if any state law is in conflict with the federal law, okay, the federal law shall prevail. And this is what the guidance in Article 75 of the Federal Constitution. What happens if any state law in contradict with a federal law? Okay, the federal law shall prevail and the state shall, to the extent of inconsistency, be void. So in other words, if there is a conflict law from Selangor and the federal government law will prevail. Okay, so you can see or not the construction of sentence in law. Okay, and state legislature have the power to make law. Okay, which matters that enumerated in any of the lists set out in the 9th schedule. Okay, which are not in a matter in respect of which Parliament has power to make law. So in general class, okay, what are the classification of the major legal system in the world? We have civil law, we have common law, we have Islamic law, we have Sino-Soviet, we have Hindu law, and we have Talmudic. Okay, in general, the system of the world, okay, are classified into three: civil law, okay, common law, okay, most of the Commonwealth country, okay, British, who were under British, Malaysia, Singapore, Brunei, okay, they were under British, okay, so it refers to Commonwealth country, Australia, okay. So there's also another type of law, that is socialist law, and Malaysian legal system is a common law system, and this can be divided into three: public law, international law, and also private law. Okay, so usually when I teach introduction to law or Malaysian legal system, okay, I used to bring my students to visit the Malaysian Parliament. Okay, but due to the restrict movement order, perhaps we can just look at the pictures. Okay, when you look in the Google, okay, Malaysian Parliament. So this is a place where you can see your member of parliament, okay, debate issues. There are time for sittings, okay, for this parliament. So far, we've been informed that the parliament will resume to open, okay, after the state of emergency will be lifted by the Yang di-Pertuan Agong, okay. That is what we read, okay, in the newspaper, okay, starting 1st August. So the law relation between the relationship, okay, between individual and the state, okay, public law is about constitutional law, okay, undang-undang perlembagaan. It is about the state. Secondly, criminal law. For example, it's about robbery, okay, rape, okay, basically it's about public safety. So constitutional law provide the right of individual in the state, like I mentioned, your right to movement, to have dinner here and there. Okay, but during this pandemic COVID-19, we have been instructed, okay, to follow the new standard of procedure for the interest of public health. So criminal law class codified the various offences, okay, committed by individual against the state. What are the example of cases relating to constitution? We have a few. Okay, we simply read the name of the case. The first case is Ng Kim Moy, plaintiff and others against pentadbir Tanah Daerah Seremban, Negeri Sembilan Darul Khusus, Negeri Sembilan Township Sdn Bhd and another proposed interns. The second case is S. Kuala Singgam and another against Commissioner of Land Federal Territory. The third case is Government of Malaysia and another against Selangor Pilot Association. And finally, Ong Ah Chuan against public prosecutor. So these are the example of decided cases. Okay, we don't make or create names class. It is reported in the journals. So if you go to Faculty of Law, for those who are doing law, basically they have one law collection in the library, okay, which is specially for them. Nowadays, it is you can get the data, okay, online. Okay, nowadays all the journals, okay, are being recorded and reported, okay, in the journals. Now we proceed with international law. Okay, it is a body of law, okay, which is composed for greater part of principle and rules of conduct. Okay, usually it is about government to government. The state feel themselves bound to observe. Okay, and consequently commonly do observe in their relation with each other. So like ASEAN countries, okay, Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, okay, we recognize ASEAN law. Okay, it's a part of the international law. Okay, law that prevail. Okay, can be divided into two. Okay, that is public international law. Okay, laws that prevail, and also private international law. So the rules that guide a judge when the law of more than one country affect a case. So we have the case of, for example, during haze, okay, ketika berjerubu, okay, it affected, okay, the environment, okay, the sky in Malaysia, okay, we cannot breathe properly, okay, because of the haze, okay, that was brought from Indonesia, okay, and it also affected Singapore. So if the case is being brought, okay, to the court, okay, the judge who hear the case have to compare what are the existing law in Malaysia and what is the existing law in Indonesia, okay, and also Singapore. So two main sources of international law, okay, what are the sources of international law? Customary rules of international law, okay, we have the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, okay, and also we have the International of Cairo Human Rights, okay, which is all applicable for Islamic countries, including Malaysia. And we are also informed by treaties and also convention. So the example is the Convention of the Children Right, okay, which means it is about the right of the children. Private civil law is the fact matters, okay, affect the right and duties of individual among themselves. For example, if you injured your best friend and your best friend take a legal action against you, okay, then the law will give compensation to person who injured, and to enable property to be recovered from wrongdoers, and to enforce obligation through agreement, through contract, and also trust. Okay, so this covers class contract that we will cover, okay, in this semester. Okay, the final chapter, okay, law, the final or the fifth chapter. Okay, there is the law of contract, and we also have law of tort class, okay, which is about individual and individual, and also law of trust. So contract based on agreement, okay, so these are the elements of a valid contract. Without it, it not become a contract. You must have offer, you must have acceptance, you must have the capacity to contract. It means you have attained the age of majority. You are 18 and above to buy a land, okay, so that is capacity. And you are not insane, okay, you are not insane, okay, that is capacity. And in the agreement, there must be no mistake. For example, you order a red car, Mercedes, for example. But what happened? The car that is delivered to you are in purple color. Okay, of course, is considered as mistake. And then misrepresentation, okay, or undue influence. Okay, you use the relationship to influence the vulnerable person, okay, to enter into an agreement. So this we are going to look example of undue influence. Okay, undue influence class is a favorite area, okay, of examination, even for ACCA paper. Okay, those who are taking professional paper accountancy, okay, when I skim through, okay, the paper, the examination, ACCA, okay, one of the favorite question is undue influence. Object also must be lawful. Okay, it means that if you want to sell something, a car, okay, the car must belong to you. Okay, it does not a car that you have taken from someone. And there must be intention to enter into legal relationship, and there must be consideration. Okay, I buy from you, okay, a car, for example, okay, and in return to the money that I give you, you give me you give your car. So that is consideration that we're going to look also under law of contract. So law of tort, okay, is basically it is an obligation imposed by law, and it is a civil wrong. For example, medical negligence, okay, you work as a doctor or a nurse, okay, and you do not practice, okay, diligence, for example, in your practice, when you work, okay, you transfer the affected blood, for example, HIV blood to a healthy patient. So that can be considered medical negligence also, which is a civil wrong. So the breach of the gender duty, okay, is imposed by the law, okay, and not agreed between the parties, and it is remediable by a civil action for unliquidated damages. So the court will look, okay, what should be the remedy, okay, how to okay, correct the situation. So any person whose legal right is infringed, class, okay, may sue the wrongdoer. The essential of element of a tort, there must be an act or omission done intentionally or negligently. As a result, there must be damage caused by such act or omission, okay, which is not remote. Okay, and we have also law of trust. Okay, this is an equitable obligation binding a person, a trustee, to deal with property over which he has control, trust property for the benefit of person, beneficiaries, or in Latin we call it sisti qui trust. Okay, of whom he may himself be one, and any one of the beneficiaries may enforce the obligation. So that's why sometimes, okay, we ask ourselves whether we have any prepare any wills or not. Okay, even though you might say I don't have a lot of money, I don't have anything, but actually sometimes the things that you own are very expensive. For example, okay, so you appoint someone to be the trustee, okay, penjaga amanah, okay, pemegang amanah, sorry, okay, as regard to the property, okay. So anything happen, okay, let's say I'm a mother, anything happen to me, okay, I already appoint someone, okay, to take care of my property, so it can be passed to the children, okay, or not. So these are the topics, okay, that we have covered actually, okay, in the first slide. Okay, what are law, what are the relationship with justice, law and ethics, rule of law, law and the state and constitution, and also classification of law. Okay, by then, okay, we finish, okay, as to chapter 1 actually. Okay, so again, okay, thank you very much. Okay.